Whoa, whoa, whoa. Welcome everyone to Blender today. Yes, it's another week of Blender news. There is a new Blender release. There are PDFs with proposals for Blender UI. There are new features, especially some long-awaited features for Linux users. There is, we are moving in the Blender Institute. The Blender Animation Studio is moving to another building. What else? There are releases. There is so much going on that let's get started. If it's the first time that you're here, my name is Pablo Vasquez. We do this every week for now a couple of months, 3 months already, and since the beginning of the year. So stay tuned for more. What is more is Blender Today live. We are live from Amsterdam. It's 9 p.m. It was daylight saving this week, so if you're watching in another time zone, sorry I didn't say it in advance enough, but you can leave your questions here and we're gonna answer them towards the end. First, let's go through the community news. What's new in the Blender community? Then we go to the hot topic of the week, and then we'll answer the questions. But also the topic of the week is the Blender UI, which is very controversial. So I want to talk with you and prepare those questions. Okay, Blender 279B, it's out. What does it mean? It means that all the awesomeness from 279 plus the fixes, the over 200 fixes that were in 279A plus 12 fixes from 279B, so it doesn't get more stable than this. But please keep testing it, and if you find any issue, just please report them and report and until you don't get an answer. Because, for example, we tweeted this afternoon about Blender 279B being available for download in blender.org and Steam. Those are the only official places where you can get it, but also you can, I heard that in Linux Mint, the PPA, any PPA, like the official one from Linux Mint, they also are providing the Blender 279B, even before we did it in Steam, and so they're pretty fast, it seems. All right, Blender 279B, the second comment, baking a spline IK still doesn't work, and a link to the post, which is sad, right? Because there seems to be some discussion, but the last comment was in January. So I don't know if that's still failing or still going on. But yeah, there seems to be a workaround. But I would, if I had this problem, I would just keep asking, like, hey, what's the status? What's the real deal? Maybe it's fixed already in 2.8. Who knows? But we shouldn't leave this. If you tested 279A and the daily build, the build bot from blender.org, from builder.blender.org, and still the issue it's there, tested with 2.8, maybe it's not there, maybe it's just dependency graph issue that maybe got fixed. But those things you should try to let people know that there are still bugs. Otherwise we're gonna need a 279C, which I bet we will anyway, because this 279 is going to be a bit of a longer term support than the regular updates, because the next one is 2.8. So yeah, of course you can get it, and in the same places as always, blender.org/download. You can get it from here. There is a bunch of versions, all the mirrors, or Steam as well. Those are the only official places where you can get it. In other news, more time-sensitive ones, is for developers. Yes, if you're a developer, a student developer, then you should check out the last tweet from Blender on Twitter. There is the deadline for Google Summer of Code tomorrow, like March 27 at 4 p.m. UTC. So you have less than 24 hours to submit. So I would hurry up. If you just submit your application, and maybe you can be the next rock star in development. So do it like Andre Lorenzo at Coding Gree. He already submitted. I'm gonna quickly check the questions just to see if I'm not missing, if I'm not breaking, if people are listening to me. Yes, everything is working. Okay, cool. Everybody downloaded it. 279p. Awesome. Summertime rocks. Yes, it rocks. Longer days. My Linux was updated. Awesome. Through Steam, no problem. Yeah, Steam is actually a good way of updating, because it solves the issue of having to download Blender all the time. It used to take longer, the setup, but now I think we found a way. Francesco always makes it, and I think it's getting faster at even. So, next, summon of code. Next, a quick public service announcement is that in master, in the development version of Blender 279, yeah, master, the one that is not 2.8, the roughness for the shaders in cycles has been squared. So finally, for example, the glossy shader, the roughness is now on par with the principal BSDF, so it's more PBR-ish, just as a reminder. So if you had your notes that you had to square it, just keep that in mind. All right. Next, continue. We are moving. Yes, the Blender Institute, Blender Animation Studio, has been in Entrepodok here in Amsterdam, in an area that is very nice. It's in front of the zoo, so often we can hear the elephants in the morning. We can hear Entrepodok 57. Let's just see it. It's just very nice. You see, you have the zoo right in front, and it's just awesome. This office, the Blender Institute, it's moving. We're moving to the north of Amsterdam, so it's not gonna be with a nice canal here, but it's gonna be in a much bigger place. So here, this area is very expensive because it's in the middle of the city. For still an affordable place with affordable price, we can move to a bigger place where we can fit more people and grow. We can make bigger projects, or the code quest, for example, can happen there together with the team. Because right now, in this where we are right now, I think at the maximum we had 16 people at one point during Sintel or Gooseberry. One of those projects were like huge, and it's just you can't fit more people. Now we're gonna get like 10 new people for the code quest, and you can't just fit them all there. So it's good, we're growing, and there is a hint of things to happen in the new in the new place. A lot of space for activities, which it's nice, because that can involve more of the Blender community that are dropping by and not feeling like you're in such a small place. All right, next, summit of code again. Next, Blender UI. Yes. Well, we could talk a little bit about the before jumping into there, the blog post that has been published recently on the code blog, on the code.blender.org. This is the official blog for development, and the latest blog post by Dalai Felinto. It's a very nice highlights of, like a recap of Blender 2.8 right now. So before we talked about Eevee and the code quest and the outliner, and yeah, a little bit before Christmas there was like a report, but now this is like the highlights of what's going on right now. For example, Eevee. Have you seen this amazing work by an amazing artist? Daniel Weisted keeps, I don't know how he does it really. He's like it's insane. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's a I don't want to spoil, but here then he enables bam, and then here he's playing with the volumetric lights, and then suddenly out of nowhere is like boom, a block of ice. A refraction, real-time refraction in Eevee. Just showing off. Come on, doesn't make sense to have a block of ice in front of the dude. And then Oh, I'm gonna make a spiral around the character just because I can. It's awesome, Daniel. Thank you for making this great gray show off. It's pretty amazing. So if you don't know Daniel Weisted, he already has a few blend files published in blender.org, in blender.org/2.8 2-8, or 2.8 also works. In the try it yourself, he has the file that it was published for the splash screen of Blender 2.8 is a Wanderer. So you can check it out. You can check also that file. Any questions? Okay, everything is going fine. I'll just check every now and then just in case, you know, I'm messed up. I press something. I think we're in a good place to move forward to talk about the clickbait Blender UI. So the Blender interface has gone a long way since the beginnings. This is since 2.2, 2.3 was the biggest change. Then from 2.4 to 2.5, it was also like a big jump. There is a Blender 2.5 not the paradigms, but design guide in the wiki, where you can see the Blender 2.5 design. I had it right here, but anyway, basically it was just a bunch of guides of how the Blender 2.5 UI would be, which is similar to what we have right now. What we have here, this is basically the results of many years of iterations over the Blender design itself. During 2.5, there was a big jump. You know, the UI was changed, the interface was adapted to use Python as a layout engine, so that way you can set up your own layouts, and you can expand it with add-ons. So it's it grew pretty okay. I was checking out one of the controversial videos about Blender UI in the video from Blender UI proposal. This video from I'm in the search from Enterprise. If you probably remember, every week I get at least one tweet reminding me to check out this video, and that's good. That means that the people are actually they pay attention to it. They want the Blender UI to improve. Many of the things that Andrew is explaining here, actually some of them they're still valid. Some of them were applied already to the Blender interface, and some of them that were not really valid, you should check out. People like watch this video and then they get in touch and they say, why it's not there? But actually if you look at usually the next promoted video is the talk also from Andrew that goes through the things that he talked about and the reasons why it's not really not every point is really valid. For example, there are a few you should check it out. If you've seen the first one, you should check out the second one. But I actually wanted to go through the points that they were like right about this. Many of them were. Well, the layers one is not valid anymore because now we have collections and they're listed in a similar way that is proposed right here. So here, task oriented. Let's go. It's not task oriented. The Blender 2.8 is all about workflow. So we have the tabs, and each tab is supposed to cover one workflow. So if you're rendering, if you're modeling, and you're texturing, sculpting, compositing, and if you name it, you can do it. So that is actually tackled. That is actually not too bad. You can do one. You can also make a mess and have everything like you have right now in Blender. But by default, the idea is that we get into this workflow based way of work. So you could do basically around the same the same things. Then yeah, Blender is not task oriented. There's a few UI proposals. Some of them are, well, the tabs we got it, yes. Then there was a few things that I in general agree. Some of them are not they don't really follow what Blender is at the moment and what Blender became over time. The notifications box is something I really want to have in Blender. It's something that since forever, actually every website has notifications. Every app on your phone, you have notifications of things going on, and you have a history of the notifications that you can go through. And that is so important to have in Blender. That is something that I think we should totally have, because some notifications you just don't, you just miss them. Or some notifications actually they should even block you almost from going. Like the render, he has an example about the render. Like if you're rendering, then you can say, hey, missing texture detected, you want to render anyway. That could be one. Or for example, when you open Blender, you don't have the auto run scripts on. That's also another point that maybe could have. It shouldn't let you use the blend file, because if it has scripts and they're not running, why would you even want to use Blender that way? So there are many valid points in this proposal. These are actually the way of having of making a material in like steps. So you add one, you have the color, and then it automatically makes the bump and the specularity. Yes, I guess by default it could do it. But yeah, there are things to take into account. For example, also the approximation, it never really works. Approximation when you want to say, okay, how many minutes are left, or if you're doing something else. Blender still has it anyway, so I guess that's fine. But anyway, let's move. This was many years ago, 2013. Then there is a new proposal in the house, which is about, well, actually there was one many years ago, which I was halfway making my own widgets. I just made my own system of widgets, like just each button as its own object that I could duplicate and I could make easily. So this is all HTML and CSS. And I made it this way so I can actually like play with interaction, and I'm not really good with like JavaScript, so I couldn't do all the things that I wanted more than just switching a few things and yeah, adding the menus and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't go further with that. But I managed to at least show some of the things that I wanted to do with, like, for example, having the tabs or the list widget for making collections and the overrides, and yeah, controlling the view layers, the new concept of view layers in Blender 2.8, which if you're not familiar, you should check out code.blender.org, because there is a nice article in there. So at some point I also went a bit more crazy, and I just started making like a proposal, a web-based proposal for the viewport with the collections, and yeah, even the outline I started it, but I never finished it. But basically I wanted to have a way of filtering yeah, the objects in the scene. So in the end, actually, we don't have that. In the end, we ended up with a oh, this is Blender 2.79. This is not 2.8. So yeah, the filtering is different in Blender 2.8. Why do I have 279? Oh, because of this. Just it's a quick off topic. This is the new close, like quit prompt window in, well, it's not a window, dialog in the Linux version of Blender. So Windows and Mac OS already have this. It's an option that you can disable, and it's in the interface section. It's called prompt quit. It was already available for Windows and Mac. and now it's also available for Linux, which but Windows, the window manager of the that we use on Linux, it doesn't have like a built-in way of closing the window, so it had to be done the Blender way, so to speak, which it's one way of having it. I mean, if you close the window with like if you're having the taskbar and you right click close it, you're not prompt with the native window, so it's hard to know why is the window not closing, because you have to go to Blender and then you will see it. So it has that downside, but on the upside it looks like Blender, right? It's built in. And we decided to go for the options of cancel, so you just cancel. You can discard the changes, so that will close and no save the changes, or you can save and quit. So I think it's a nice compromise. It's a nice number of options, and this patch was made by Diego Gangle and a lot of developers like chipping in feedback. So it's been around for a couple years, so it's good that it's now finally in Blender 2.7 in master. Anyway, that's why I had 2.7. Discard changes. So nice to press these buttons. But let's go to the good stuff. 2.8. I just compiled it. Here, 2.8. Let's see the questions in case I'm not missing anything. Do you see that proposal? Yes, that is a proposal that I'm gonna look at right now. So this is 2.8. This is how it looks at the moment. And let's go through the proposal from William, because that is the latest and is all the rage. And a lot of people are mostly agreeing with it. Some are not. I have my own opinions in a few things, but basically it overall is pretty pretty self, like it tackles most of the issues that Blender has at the moment. A few of them are controversial, so some of them, yeah, we'll just see. It's very well presented too. But if you don't know about Willem, he's been involved with Blender since like forever. He worked as an animator in Big Bug Bunny already and Sintel, so he's been around. He's used Blender for production for ages, and also he was part of the sprint of Blender 2.5, so it's also involved with the UI, and he made tons of designs for that and design proposals. So it's not like popping out of nowhere. Actually, he was working on the Blender 2.5, and the reason why Blender 2.5 also looks sort of like, well, now it has a theme, but it's because of so it's pretty nice. It's pretty so cool that he's back for it, and he's gonna be part of the Code Quest, so we're gonna have a bit more. So it's good to know that this proposal is not just gonna be talked about and that's it, but actually he's coming over for 3 months to work on it. So that's a pretty nice. It's good. Basically, there is an introduction. Blender is for artists. This is something that we have to emphasize even more. Every time that I read, I love Blender, but I wish it was more like Maya. Or I love Blender, I wish it was more like ZBrush. Or I wish it was more like Houdini. Or like, if like you don't, it sounds like you don't really love Blender. You just love the price tag a little bit. Maybe you love Blender too, but you want it to become something else. So yeah, if it becomes Maya, then a lot of people will say, I wish it was more like Houdini, or I wish it was more like ZBrush. I wonder if Cinema 4D, for example, the users of Cinema 4D, they open the software and say, I wish it was more like Maya, or more like Houdini, or more like... There's just different software, and I think Blender is for Blender users. Blender is for artists. Blender is for people that, yeah, that want to invest in it. Of course, not everything is perfect. There are things that we can fix. The UI is far from perfect. It has many headaches, but it still has really good concepts that I think they're good. They should be kept. There is a reason why people that really love Blender are used to the way Blender is mainly. But we'll get to it. I don't want to start a war right now, but basically it's a Blender is for artists. So artists, I agree, but also what about people like researchers, people, developers that are testing stuff, or anything really, people that are not doing really art but are doing Blender for whatever else? They should be able to tweak, and they should be able to make their own 3D software. They should be able to expand Blender the way they want. Blender should adapt to everything, right? So the fact that it's for beginners or pros, it's just a matter of adapting your own software, your own Blender version. Of course, at the beginners, it should be approachable by beginners, but it should be super easy to change and become more of just use it more as a pro, with all the shortcuts and the everything that makes your work faster, like super fast pie menus and everything. That should be allowed. So I'm not gonna go through the whole like reading and everything, but just a matter of just highlighting. So values, speed, that is the most important thing, I think. Being able to work fast, especially in a software like Blender where everything is together, like the compositor, the modeler, the modeling tools, the sculpting materials, everything is there. So that should be fast, right? Should be easy to switch. As easy as changing an editor should be as easy as changing a workspace in Blender 2.8, in Blender in general. Ease of use, that, yes, it should be easy, but things get easy as well. So that I'm there. Consistency above all, everything. If you learn something one area, you should be able to learn, to use other areas of the software the same way. Should be consistent. And Blender, it's sort of consistent in mainly, like if you press G, it will move whatever you are. If you're in the dope sheet, it will move. If you're in the keyframes, in the action editor, in the any editor really. Let's move on, otherwise I'm gonna keep reading every point, and that's not the goal. So there are a few valid points regarding the customization, that it should be easy to go back, like Blender should be easy to be customized, but also should be easy to go back to the regular interface. So there should be an easy way to do it. And right now from the you can change application templates from the menu really fast, but what if it was instead on the splash screen, or there was like a step-by-step setup, for example, like a wizard? That would make things a bit faster. So keeping what is great versus change. Non-overlapping windows, that's a no-brainer. No, windows are not going to overlap. Of course, you can do it if you want. Blender allows you to just have a window overlapping, just as is, but it should be, ideally Blender itself should not be overlapping. You should have things floating and blocking your work. Or if you have to, other softwares, what they do is just like have the outliner floating somewhere there, so you have to go back and forth. It's just that's not the way it should be. It should be fast, should be flexible. And let's go to the juicy content. See if I'm missing any questions. Okay, no. Okay, cool. Let's go. He makes a few points that are valid. Some of them, GRS, the transform tools block the UI while enabled. What does it mean? That when you're moving, you can't do anything else. You're moving, right? Your attention is in moving the object. That's what it means. Which is, I think, arguable. It's good because you're moving. You want to enter move mode, then you can use manipulators for that. That's like a different option, I think. Some of the options are, for example, when you press G for selecting vertices, for like circle select, and then you can't move the view. That is silly. That is doesn't make any sense. But for moving and for rotating and translating, I think that at some point it mentions the sticky keys, and maybe that's the way to go. Tool settings. We can continue because it's better to show it with pictures. Basically, the tool settings right now in Blender is a bit of a mess, in the sense that when you're transforming stuff, when you are doing any operator really, the tool settings will show up here on the bottom of the T panel. So you have to both have the T panel open and have this section in the bottom open, which is a bit of a yeah, it makes it hard to identify. This is also built on the fly, so there's no layout here more than the one that comes with Blender by default. Like, why would you have a whole slider for one cut? That kind of things. That is built automatically, so it's not really laid out like here, like these settings. So you can also bring it up with the F6 panel, which makes it floating, and then you have basically the same UI, but in the a bit more accessible. But every time you change something, you move away, you have to, yeah, you lose that. So maybe there could be present in an area dedicated for that. And of course, the tools that actually don't make any, when you're when you have a radian control, for example, if you're in sculpt mode, yes, some of the controls expose settings that you cannot change. So why even doing it? But yeah, that is a those cases, they will take a lot more work, of course, because then you have to go one by one and setting which settings are going to be visible, which ones are going to, like, which ones do make sense to show stuff or not, or some of them have no settings. Then the sorting also is, yeah, this is more to do with the layout and the way the Blender builds the layout. So how to solve these issues? Photoshop style setting bar along the top. Yes, maybe we shouldn't name other softwares. Basically, we should think about our ways of doing things. This proposal actually was discussed in the top bar branch of a here. It's in top bar. This concept of having tools. What if I start factory? There you go. This concept of having the tools use. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Of having the tools up here, the ones that you use, like when for example, if I add a cut here, then it will show up here. This concept was actually tested. We tried it with the latest option with the smoothness factors, and then the problem is that it's horizontal. So the fact that you, like, the UI will jump back and forth whenever you're choosing, whenever you are changing tools, is maybe not like the best approach of doing it. If it was a list, a vertical list, then that bothers a bit less. But the fact that it's horizontal and then whatever you're doing, it keeps adding stuff, that can be problematic. We need to solve how to do it, how to even, like, when there is not enough room. Let's see the sculpting. Okay, no, this one is not, at least there is not showing those options. But yeah, like what to do when you run out of space. Then yeah, you can have more, and then you explain, you basically expose everything, so it will be around the same. At the end of the day, you have around the same control. But this needs more experimentation. The top bar project basically had two components. One of them is the global top bar, which with the list of workspaces. That's gonna be part of Blender 2.8 for sure. And then the secondary bar, it's not like a topic for the Blender 2.8 code quest now, but because it needs to be decided. When it's maybe if we can come up with a nice design for it, then yes. Otherwise, the top bar, it's a must because we need it for like these tabs is a must because we need it for the workspaces development. So this is the proposal. Floating window. What do you guys think about floating windows? I will move on. Otherwise, it's gonna be like reading just a PDF. But you should check it out. Actually, this link, you can find it if you wanna see the list. You can go to blender.today, and there is a here design proposal version 1 by William Reinisch, and then you can see it. And this is where we are getting, but not yet. Spoiler alert. Let's move on. What about this? How can this work and be? I'm not sure. This reminds me a bit of like this big bar with some of them multi-line and some of them single line. It feels a bit strange, especially if you don't have enough room. It makes it all the buttons should be the same size. Having different sizes maybe is not the most I think it doesn't really help to have different sizes of icons and text and everything. So we'll see. We have to see it working though. But basically, having a more room vertically than horizontally means that every horizontal line is precious, basically, because whatever you add to the horizontal space, it will shrink your, like if my window, if I'm in object mode, I can make it smaller. Because this is the object branch here. So if my window was like this big, it will feel strange if I had to go back and forth. I don't know. The sidebars work a bit much better for this. If you don't want to have this chin always, not chin, but like a notch, like the iPhone 10 notch, always up here. Of course, you should be able to collapse them easily. Maybe it's something to get used to it. But then, yes, messy. Custom pane, yes. Let me see if I can get any. Am I missing anything? Let's see. Floating videos should never be in Blender. That says Augment. I think floating windows should be able to be made by pulling out a tab from the. Yeah, but then what happens with the floating window? What happens when you resize the window? Where is it? Is it like always stuck to the size of the window or not? What happens? You leave it here? Should it stay there? Like even when you're not using it? In Blender 2.4 we had it, and inside of the editor was acceptable, I think. But all over Blender, like these ones, I don't know. I think we can do better than that. Could be pinned. Yes, if it was pinned, then yeah, maybe. Floating windows shouldn't be obligatory. No. I'm fine with floating windows as long as there is only one at a time. yes, that makes sense, and that's what we have right now, right? The floating, these panels are only available as long as you have you're doing stuff over the pop-up. When you move the mouse away, it goes away. Nyan Cat also doesn't like the top bar idea, the big top bar idea. Good. All right, so at least I'm not. Everybody seems to be okay with the same concept. If you wanna add me, you can. If you wanna get your question more prominent, you can add Blender today, and that way I'll see it. Where can we see? Yes, actually, I'm gonna send the guys the link here. That's where you can download the link. All right, let's move on, because this article is it's almost time, and I want to cover everything. So yes, some of the tools that stay active. Yeah, well, that's a problem with the tools that are active on the sidebar. Right now, we go to object mode. Let's open a new window. Object mode. So right now the tools, for example, if you want to translate, is G, and then you move it. Or you can also have press the button here, transform, and then since this tool is actually used from the position of the mouse, it's problematic. So why is it problematic? Well, because when you move, it uses the position of your mouse. For movement, it's not so bad, but for scale, for example, scale is basically if you're far away from the object, the scale movement will be minimal. But if you're close to the center, then even when you move it a little bit, it's gonna be it's gonna change quite a lot. So there is this test going on about having an active tool. This is a test. So basically assigns the left mouse button to a tool. By default is the cursor, set the cursor, right? But what if you had select border, for example? So you set the active tool, and then you can, with left click, you can change this behavior. So you can select multiple objects, for example. So that's one tool. Then translation. So every time you press the left mouse button, basically you're assigning an action. So I think this one works for, you can even use a cage. Wow, 2.8. So I think this one works for maybe Blender the 101 project, where you need, like for kids or for like when you're teaching, you need to go select a tool and then go back and play with, like, use that tool. I think that is a very good example for educational, or for some tools that actually need the position of the mouse, then I think that could work. But we shouldn't try to replace everything in Blender with that, because some tools are just not designed for that. Some tools they do need the position of the mouse to be here on top of the objects, and that's why we should try to rely more in the viewport, and having the tools right in the viewport, like having the objects there, having the, like if you have spot lamp, the fact that you can just click and drag for changing the looks of this lamp, this is great, and I think we should try to do that more. We should try to, let's see the size. If I add a new, to menus for everything, you go into menu and then another menu, just doesn't work. So just try to put more, because that also, when you're with a pen, it's also much easier if you have all the tools right in hiding the pie menus options there. I have mixed feelings about pie menus. They are super fast. Once you get used to them, they're so fast to work with. Pie menus are very, for that, they just speed up your process so much. But you shouldn't rely on them 100%. You shouldn't, because it's a circle and you read, it's reading from a list is much easier on the eye. And when you read from a circle, it gets a bit lost. So I think we should use pie menus for speed, but it shouldn't be mandatory to use them, especially when they have too many options, because that will scare away even more the beginners. So wow, this is so strange to see this in Blender. I want to move on to the questions and keep going here because I think it's almost time. I'm gonna go and read on the orange questions. Okay, floating lines, yes. I don't like the top bar idea, just attach it back to the toolshelf when you're done. Blender should do it though. It could go back to the toolshelf when you're done, yes. UI designer, I have some propose. Can you add a pixel grid to camera view? It must have vertex snap. That's a feature request. I must be the only one that likes Blender UI as it is now. No, you're not. I think something that will be good for some designers to look at is a way to teach user shortcuts without disturbing those who know them. Yeah, well, the tools or the menus actually have the shortcuts next to them. So you can, well, in this case, Shift L is a bit useless, but the tools that have shortcuts, they are displayed on the side. Perhaps the best thing would be to stop looking for an ideal UI and make one extremely configurable by the user to let us be the ones who find the ideal UI for each workflow. That is the goal. The Blender should be easy to configure and make your own. Any chance on square nodes as a UI option? I remember someone making a UI mod in Blender with square nodes. That was me. I made it. I tweaked my Blender for it to have square nodes, but not completely square, but like like 3 pixels roundness. I liked it actually. I liked it because the nodes being square made the circles, the sockets, stand out a bit more. So it wasn't everything rounded, but square-ish nodes and then round. Maybe if more people like the idea, we can make it happen in Blender 2.8 as part of the UI redesign. Probably I'm out of time, but maybe ribbon like bars. Yeah, ribbons. No. How can I prepare my project for 2.8? Materials don't seem to fully translated yet, or could be set up differently. How can I prepare my projects for 2.8? Well, just open them in 2.8 to see how material-wise how they look, but you shouldn't save any production files with Blender 2.8 yet. Don't, because it can break. There is not even animation support yet. Do we have new Blender video sequence editor in 2.8? No, we don't. We wish we did, but no, we don't. Stickykeys. This was an experiment that was added back with in a couple years ago, and for example, a sticky key is the drawing of the grease pencil. You just press the key, and then as long as it's pressed, then it's gonna be active, but without the key, without pressing the mouse, the click. Let's go to the actions. Some of the color choices for this, actually, they kind of make sense. The one for adding geometry be one color, edge slide being a different color, and removing being red. I think it could work. The problem with this that I see is that it might get confusing with the axes, multiple axes, because then red is usually the X, Z is usually the blue, so it can be a bit confusing there. Maybe we can use another kind of colors for that, like a different palette for it. Similar, but maybe more, you know, more less in your face as red, green, blue. Then let's continue. I wanted to go here. Wireframe display mode overrides. Yes, you like the document is huge. You should check it out. It has the view modes, view overrides, which I think the view modes should have their own, should be configurable. They should be like, we should be able to make our own view modes, because it's hard to make it, yeah, to make it good for everyone. In this case, he's adding matcap and hidden wire, which I think it's okay. It's just the problem is that it's a bit you end up with having way too many view modes. So I think Blender should ship with a few and then make a new view mode that you just set the settings that you want. So on this one I want wireframes and AO, but I don't want depth of field, for example. Okay, so you just make your new view mode like an override. I think that will be even better. Oh no, don't even get me started in the in the grid for Blender. This is a problem that we brought back. It brought in the November 2 years ago in the UI workshop. The problem is that many of these buttons, they don't align. Basically, if you zoom in, you will see that some of them are basically not aligned. There is a line that, for example, this option is above these ones over here, and then this one is also not aligned with this. And this, for example, this text starts here, but this text starts here where this text ends. So Blender grid, like the UI grid, is full of these little issues here and there that I think overall they add a bit of noise, a visual noise. If we could fix this, which we already mentioned this before, is known, and I will try to tackle it. I will try to maybe get some developers to work on it. I guess it's not the most fun project in the world, but I think it's needed, because even though this is just a few pixels misaligned, if the whole UI would be aligned with this grid, I think it would benefit so much more to like make it a bit more easy to read. It would make it like, look at this one. This widget starts halfway. The one on the right starts halfway, the one on the left. This, of course, when you see it, maybe it doesn't affect you, but I bet that if we get to align all the buttons to a grid, it will look much better, much cleaner. It wouldn't look so noisy, and yeah. More hard to see the headers in which editor each one belongs to. Yes, that's a valid point. This one I really like, actually. Having the plus and remove buttons and the X buttons on some of these data blocks is not always needed. Having these actions all the time available, like deleting a scene. Like, a scene is huge, right? It's your whole plan file is a scene, basically. So having the button to delete it so accessible, it's not something you do every day, so why, or every hour even, so why even having it so accessible? It could be part of the list, so it takes you one more step and you're really sure that you're doing it. You know, you go, you select it, and then, or you just press X somewhere in here in the menu, but at least the UI itself without these buttons will look a bit much more clean. Just the name, and then to add one, you can click in here and add a new. That one, that part I really like from the design, the proposal. Then the emboss effect is yes, go away. Actually, what I did on my theme, I just use it as a drop shadow, and I actually like it as a drop shadow. It adds a bit more, yeah, makes it pop, I think, a bit better. These should be tabs, agreed. Groove not needed. That's true. Actually, that's what I removed on my theme. Not trying to promote my theme, Flatty Light, but it's just, I see that many things are actually tackled there. Then too messy and the gravity style is actually not right. Well, that is actually possible to remove in Blender. If you didn't know, you can remove it from the user preferences, show layout widgets, and then they're gone. These triangles are gone. So we already worked on that. How do you divide a window now? Well, you should right click on the side and then split area. So right click and then split or join. Just like we used to do in 2.4. Right click, join. Today I was approached with a video about having these options a bit like either hidden or disabled, because it's a lot of like when you have them enabled, because it can be confusing, like in which direction do you do it and then how do you split it. I think at the beginning it's a bit annoying, but over time you get used to it and it's just fast to do it. But yes, for beginners maybe we can hide them at the beginning. Let's see. There are a few proposals here that he's doing. I don't know. Well, we're over 1 hour now, but you should check them out. Some of them are very, very nice, very good to see them. Of course, it's many things, right? It's also like hiding the arrows. But then, what do you know? How do you know if it's an arrow that you can, like the slider, you can drag it? How do you know it has a limit there, or how do you know where to click on it? Right? Of course, the buttons, they have the label on the top, on the center. But then, if you have to mouse over everything, we have to see, because remember, pens, you have mouse over, but it's never as precise. And yeah, getting rid of the highlight, the color highlights also might help. If we have a theme that is darker, for example, if flatty dark, I think getting rid of these color highlights might help. It will reduce the noise overall. So I think that's something I will do on my own theme. Just remove the colored highlights and just go plain monochrome, dual color. This, I love it. The splitting of the windows with this, making the editors more like, yes, I like it. Maybe it's a bit exaggerated here in this example, but I actually like that that approach. This one, the one that shows the preview over the header, I'm not sure, because it could make it look like a button if we don't make them buttons really, because it is an input. For example, the end is an input. Can you tell that it's an input? The splitting the menu editor in 4 lines actually it's there. If you make the window bigger, let's go a bit more. The splitting of the editors is now it's done. Actually, here down, I think we need to fix the navigation for this. Like, you should be able to go back and forth between with the arrows, but besides that, it's yeah, it's implemented. So at least now animation, you know, it's always going to be there, so you don't have to guess in which part of the in which column is the one that you have the animator tools or scripting or data. All right, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. There's tons of options. There's the one for the modifiers, the one that have an arrow to show the order of evaluation. I think that's nice. It would be even better if we had nodes, modifier nodes, but drag and drop in, I think that's the second best that we can have. File browsers. Okay, I'm not gonna get into everything, but I think the options for opening they shouldn't be here, because right now that's where we have them now, and some importers or exporters have so many options that having it here you end up scrolling so much that I would rather have it as a different tab here, or even just make the thing bigger and just always display the options there. I think that would even make more sense, because some exporters have such a long list of options that you get lost. A few questions and then I will wrap up. By the way, in my recently I asked people, what do you think about the length of these live streams, and most of the people say they're okay with it. Sometimes they can't get enough, so I will, because I was considering making them half an hour, but then you can't see everything, right? You can't answer people. Can you add a button copy render image to clipboard? I wish. I asked that so many times, but it's a lot of work because Blender is multi-platform, right? So it has to work for Windows, for Mac, and Linux, and these different implementations. And what if your image is a EXR, right? You have an EXR 100 megabytes. You put that on your clipboard, or you only copy, I don't know. What is it when you copy? It makes a PNG version, 8-bit, 16-bit. Let's see. So Blender just needs a few tweaks, not a UI redesign. Sounds good to me. Yes. Yes, actually, Augment. That's a very good way of summing up. As much as I want Blender to keep its own visual identity, if you want the best UI for users, you will get something like ZBrush UI. You can move individual options, not just tabs. Really? Wow, I didn't know that. Can we get the Flatty Dark theme? I should put it on GitHub. Every week people ask, and I still haven't gotten to do it. It's been a lot of work at work these days. It's been with the release, with the code quest. We are moving, so that also distracts a bit of the day. Spring is going on. Currently we have to scroll a lot in the tool panel to find buttons. Yes. So the buttons with more relevance should be accessible, right? Or being able to edit. Imagine if you had here, for example, and then you can just like right click. Well, actually here in here you can right click and then you can pin some panels. Did you guys know that? You can like pin, go to create and pin the add primitives, and then go and physics, and then that way you can sort of make your own UI, sort of. But it would be nice maybe to do that with buttons. Or maybe you can press tab inside of the panel and then it will flip and then you can edit. Nah, make your own buttons, edit them, and then tab again to it. Like edit, but edit mode for panels. That could be fun. Talk about interactive mode. Do you have more news about it? Yes, that don't freak out, people. More default. Will there be a border radius available in 2.8 like CSS? Well. Speaking of that, remember what I did? This is a small announcement. Remember what I did in my proposal for UI? Well, UI Blender developer Julian Severin, he made that basically this same concept of having a modular UI thingy builder into actual code. He calls it B-Widgets and is a cross-platform widget toolkit designed for Blender, but it's a standalone, so you can use it you can reuse it for other projects as well. So basically this is a way to build UIs much faster, and it's a library basically that Blender can use and any other software can use. So any of the fixes that get done there, it will be applied for, like you fix one widget, or it can be applied to multiple projects using the same B widget. And one of the cool things about it is that you can style it with CSS. Yes, with CSS. You can actually, that's awesome. Yes, you can actually write CSS to style it. So imagine Blender themes using CSS. Well, might not be too far from now. This is made by Julian Eisel, 17, so you should check it out. If you Google for Blender 17, you get it. Blender 17. Ha! No, Blender 3D 17. Okay, just Julian Eisel. There you go. Much better. What else? What can I do to be an official Blender trainer? Go to blender.org/certification. And then you can apply, have a Blender network profile, and get your certification. I think we can all agree dynamic spacebar should be mandatory, lol. So many features in Amaranth toolset should be default in Blender. Thank you. I wish. Animation nodes default in Blender. Are we going to be able to use the solid viewport shading while using cycles as we do now? To be defined. Well, with the custom viewports, yes. But not at the moment. Is possible to use Grease Pencil on the sequence editor like I watch on the cloud? Yes, of course. If you've seen it on the cloud, then you've seen it everywhere. Just go to the... It just works, right? You're hearing the sequencer, and then just start drawing with D, and that's it. All right, I will cut this up because it's been already more than enough. Yes, interactive mode. The last thing I wanted to say is that people you should not freak out about the game engine going away. It's not like a decision is like, yeah, it just goes away. No, basically there is room, just making room for something better, and that can be the interactive mode. So what is the interactive mode? It's basically a game engine. It's where you get you add interaction to your objects using Eevee, using the latest and greatest. You can walk around. You should have basic logic bricks, and it should be much better than what we have right now. There is money for, like Tom Rosendahl said in the interview that we did for the Code Quest. He says that it's been since a while. He's saving up a pot of money from the Blender Development Fund and from companies that want to improve the game engine, for people that actually want to improve the game engine, but make a new one, basically, because Blender's game engine has so much legacy at the moment that just plugging in Eevee and just fixing some of the things that are so legacy in Blender internally is just not gonna cut it, I think. So I would advise into that. Just make something new. There is so much room for activities. It's 2.8. Anyway, I think we are good for today. I have so much passed over time, but I think it was fun. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave it a thumbs up to this video if you want to keep seeing this happening every week. You can click a thumbs up, and then that feels much better, and other people will find these videos and know about it. We are about to cross 1,000 subscribers on the channel, which is insane because we just started right now, like it feels like a few weeks ago, but it's actually a couple months ago. So thank you everyone for tuning in and for wanting to follow and learn Blender updates as much as I do. So I will see you again next week, same time, same place. Can you even hear the music? No, because I have the music low, but suppose that you're listening to Gilles' theme. Let me fix this. Yes, there you go. The Gilly music. Bye bye, and I will see you again next week. Tuesday, by the way, Tuesday. I'm not gonna do it on Monday because it's holidays. So I will see you again on Tuesday next week, same time.